This video is on key features of graphs. Remember that these videos are a condensed or shortened version of the notes, so if they go a little too fast, you can always pause it and take your time to get caught up. So the first key feature, you learned key features last time, you learned domain and range, but the next one is x and y intercept. So the x-intercept is the point or points where the graph crosses the x-axis, and it's always written as some number, comma, 0. That's not a hashtag, it means number, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The y-intercept is the point or points where the graph crosses the y-axis. All right, so now that we know, and those are always written 0, comma, some number. So now that we know what they look like, we need to find them on the graph. So we're going to use the same 3 graphs over and over to find these different important aspects. So the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So it crosses the x-axis right here, and that order pair is -2, 0. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and it crosses it right here, and that point is 0, 4. This is different than domain and range, where domain was, it's everything in this window. These are actual points that are on the graph. Okay, so over here on the second one, the x-intercept, the 2 points where it crosses the graph would be -2, 0 and +2, 0. Where it crosses the y-axis is up here, so lots of 2's, but this one is 0, 2. Notice the x-intercepts are a number 0, the y-intercepts are 0 some number. On the next one, the x-intercept, make it a little bigger if you want to be able to see it. Whoops. Let's try that again. Okay, the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, so here and here. So at -7, 0 and at 1, 0. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and it's right here at the point 0, -1. Now next week you're going to have a quiz, and if there's more than one intercept, I'm not concerned about the order in which you write the points as long as you have both of the points. All right, the next key feature is positive and negative intervals. So positive intervals are the section or sections where the graph is above the x-axis, and the negative intervals are the section or sections where the graph is below the x-axis. Okay? When we talk about positive and negative intervals, we are always going to be reading the numbers off of the x-axis. All right? So we are going to be looking at the x-axis as our guide. Anything above is positive, below is negative. We are going to write this in interval notation, and we're looking at the left and right bounds of the interval. We are not at all concerned about where it is on the y. So if I look, now remember, pause the video if you need to catch up. Okay, if I look at the first graph, here is the x-axis. If I look at the first section, this first section over here is below the graph. That makes it negative. So I want to write an interval for the range, and I want to write it from left to right. So at left, it keeps going off to the left, so it's negative. So it's negative starting at negative, that's bad infinity sign, try again, at -infinity. Okay, and it goes all the way to +2. Okay, and that's where it stops being negative. Now I'm going to put a parenthesis there because of that +2, it's neither above or below the line, so it's going to have a parenthesis. But then if I look at this range over here, this section is above, so it's positive. So the left bound of this region is, oops, I made a mistake on this one. That's not +2, it's -2. So the left bound of this positive region is -2, and it keeps on going to infinity. All right, let's try this again on the second one. So the graph gets cut in half. Anything above is positive, below is negative. So this section over here, oh, I forgot to tell you, we're going to make these points right here because I want to show you something. Okay, this section over here is below, so it's negative. The left boundary of this section is -4. The right boundary of this section is -2. Now at -2, it's neither above or below the line, so I'm going to have a parenthesis. But at this -4, you definitely have a point at -4, and it's definitely negative, so it's a bracket. If I look at the next section of my graph, this little window I'm looking at is above, so it's positive. As I look at it from left to right, the left boundary is -2, and the right boundary is +2. I use parentheses because the 2 is right on the line. It's neither above or below. Finally, I have this region over here. It is below the x-axis, so it is negative. The left bound is 2, and the right boundary is 4. I'm going to have a bracket because it includes 4. Now remember, I'm only reading the numbers off of the x-axis, okay? And I'm looking for the left and right boundary. It may have more than one negative or positive interval. It's not going to be just one of each. All right, if I'm looking at the next graph, this section right in here is positive because it's up above. Well, now as I'm looking at the left boundary, and remember I'm looking at the x-axis, so I'm going out this way. It continues this way, so it starts at -infinity, and it stops being positive at -7. I'm going to have a parentheses because when it's on the line, it's neither above or below. The next region is in here. That is below, so it's negative. The left boundary is -7. The right boundary, sorry I didn't draw that well, is 1. Okay, parentheses because it's not above or below the x-axis. The last section of my graph right here, this section is positive, and it's positive starting at 1, and it goes on to infinity. Infinity always has parentheses. At 1, it's neither above or below, so it's a parentheses. Okay, let's look at this one. Increasing and increasing and decreasing. Increasing intervals are the sections of the graph that go up from left to right. Decreasing are the sections that go down from left to right. When you read this, you're going to read it off the x-axis, just like we did for positive and negative. And I also like to think of this as a roller coaster. If you get on the roller coaster at the far left side of your graph, are you going up? Then it's positive. Are you going down? It's negative. So if we look at this first graph, as I go from left to right, my graph is constantly going up. So the entire thing is increasing, so there's no decreasing interval. Okay? And it goes all the way to the left increasing and all the way to the right increasing. So when it's everything, it's -infinity to infinity. Over here, and we're going to do arrows this time. I'm going to get on my roller coaster and it's going up. So this whole section is increasing. It started increasing at -infinity. And why didn't I say -infinity? Well, because remember I'm reading it off the x and it's further to the left. And it goes all the way to right here. Now a lot of people want to say it stops increasing at 2, but it doesn't. You got to read it off the x-axis, so it stopped increasing at 0. This section right here, my roller coaster is a tipping point, and now all of a sudden my roller coaster is going down from left to right. So this is decreasing. The decreasing, read it off of the x-axis, is 0, and it continues on in the positive direction of x, so it goes to infinity. I know the graph is going down, but we're reading off the x. Okay, if I'm looking at this last one, as I go from left to right, the graph is going down. So this section here is decreasing, and it's decreasing from -infinity all the way to -3. But at -3, it changes direction, and this part of the roller coaster from left to right is going up. So it is increasing, and it's increasing from -3 to infinity. I have a parentheses there because at -3, it's neither increasing or decreasing. It's a turning point. Okay, let's see if we can put all the information that we know about key features in one graph. So the first one, is it a function? Well, yes, it's a function because we are going to do the vertical line test. So as we run these vertical lines, it's only going to hit my graph once. So yes, it's a function. The domain is your x values, So we're going to read that off the x. It's the left and right boundary. So the left boundary, there's an arrow, it keeps going. So the left boundary is negative infinity. The right boundary is 10. It's a closed circle, so we have a bracket. The range is the y values. So this one is bottom to top. So the bottom one is -3. There's a point there, there's a bracket, and it goes all the way up to 1. It's a bracket. Questions 1, 2, and 3 we learned last week. This is the new stuff, 4, 5, and 9, or 4 through 9. All right. Next question. X-intercepts. That's where it crosses the x-axis. So it crosses here and here. This one's in between 2 and 3, so this is going to be 2.50 and 70. Remember that the x-intercepts are always some number, comma, 0. The y-intercepts is where it crosses the y-axis, which is right here, and that's going to be 0, comma, 1. Remember, those are always some number, comma, 0, and there's our y-intercept. Positive interval. Positive and negative is where we divide the graph by the x-axis. Anything that is above is positive. Anything that is below is negative. So there are the different sections of my graph. This first positive interval, the left boundary, is negative infinity, and it keeps being positive until 2.5. After 2.5, it crosses the yellow x-axis and becomes negative. So it starts being negative at 2.5, and it continues to be below until we get to 7. Sorry, bad 7. Then at 7 it crosses and then it's up again. So from 7 all the way to 10, now 10 is an actual point and it's above, bracket, it is positive. Okay, last thing, increasing and decreasing. This is on a roller coaster. Now if I'm on a roller coaster right here, it's flatlining, either up or down, so nothing here. But once I get to this point, it's going down. So this part right here is decreasing. So it's decreasing from 2 to 4. Then once it gets to 4, all of a sudden my roller coaster is going up, and this section is increasing. So it's increasing from 4, not to 7, but until it stops going up, so from 4 to 8. And that is our lesson.